Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
You are in the American environment, which also which allows great science, but also allows great superstition. Now we read about this great anti-vaxxers business going on in America. People are dying of measles now. Measles are back. So how do you sustain this in such a suspicious environment?
Well, look, in general, there have been so many conspiracy theories and nonsensical theories around cancer that you always have to battle, as it were, the superstitions around cancer treatment in general. Oh, it's a conspiracy, this, etc., etc. But there has never been in the United States, or for the matter elsewhere in the world, a lack of innovation, and it takes time. You have to. This is an active process. It takes time to convince people that this can be delivered safely. I was telling Kiran recently. Many of you might know this. In the course of the development of bone marrow transplantation, which by now has cured several blood diseases, and including several leukemias. When the first tests were done, 88 patients died. It was the 89th patient who lived and then began to show long-term remissions. So if you're a doctor or if you're the public, you have to have trust in the process of science such that you understand that these patients died either because they had a terminal illness or because the treatment was not successful. For what reason? What was the reason? Because everything arises in medicine, everything arises as a consequence of the project of reason. You have to apply reason to why you fail. You have to apply reason to why you succeed. You have to apply reason to when a patient gets a response but then relapses. All of these are, if they're done systematically, build trust. And part of the problem, I think, to be honest, with the anti-vax movement is that we as a medical community had become very complacent about the success of vaccines. What we should have been doing is telling people every year, year after year, is that the reason your child is not, having horrible diseases such as mumps, measles, and rubella, among other diseases, polio, is because we invented, as humans, we invented mechanisms to prevent your child from having these diseases. Instead, it became very routine. You went to your pediatrician's office, your pediatrician gave you an injection and said, now go home, right? But again, I have to convince all of you, the excitement that pervaded the world when the first polio vaccine was successful was just enormous. Children in the summers in the United States, of course, here when polio would sweep through the country, they couldn't leave their houses for the entire vacation. They would be locked up in their houses. In Boston City Hospital, there was a ward in which there was basically a line of so-called ventilators, because in those days we didn't have positive ventilators. They were negative ventilators. These were steel chambers which the children were put into, and the steel chambers would expand and contract because they had paralyzed the upper parts of their body during the acute phase of the polio epidemic. Imagine a row, 20, 30 such incubators with 10-year-old, 5-year-old children sitting with the steel pieces moving so that they could breathe. And now imagine 10 years, 15 years later, after the introduction of the vaccine, those incubators, you can't even find them. You can't even find a picture of them. So the idea around the entire anti-vax movement was that there was the nihilism was because I think we failed to convey the excitement and the number of lives saved in the process.